Back in studio alongside Emory Hunt, the two-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden joining the conversation as well. And I want to hold off on figuring out what went wrong here for Minnesota. So let's start with a thought on the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm looking at 43 runs to 25 pass, and even if you take the 7 Justin Herbert runs, far more balance in this game than we've seen throughout the season. How big was that in their win tonight?
It was huge because we came into this ball game questioning whether or not the Chargers' offensive line would be a concern, to be an issue against these Vikings pass rushers. And what happened? All they did was come in here and run the ball down the Vikings' throat. You talk about 14 rushing first downs, 13 passing first downs, so that tells you the protection held up on the passing side, but they imposed their will and reset the line of scrimmage in the run game. Kamani Vidal had a fantastic game, and also the fact that they were just able to run the football when they wanted to shows you how good the offensive line was. And defensively, the defensive line also kicked the Vikings' tail up front because you had Justin Aboybe with a huge game. They had 7 TFLs as a unit, and this was a defense that did a great job of getting after the quarterback. So point of attack play, a paramount issue for Jim Harbaugh, but you saw his team rise to the occasion tonight and get the job done up front.
You know, arguably, Joe Alt might be the most important non-quarterback offensive player for the Chargers because just his presence alone improved the entire offensive line. Remember, you talked about the success the Chargers had running the football. A lot of that had to do with Joe Alt being in place. Remember, they could not run the football at all last week against the Colts, but that running game was there because of the continuity that Joe Alt established, and it trickled down throughout the entire offensive line. And I can tell you this much, guys, I love this version of Justin Herbert, who we watched tonight, kind of impersonating Josh Allen a little bit in terms of the running. I mean, over 60 yards on the ground. Now, a lot of that was just QB improvising, but he should do that more because of his athleticism and the mobility to make people miss, not to mention the surprising speed that he has. When he is doing what he did tonight, their offense is better. Even with some of the key contributors missing because of injury, that still takes up some of the slack missing from those said guys who are not in the lineup. So in all, this was a very, very important ball game for the Chargers. A short week. When you look at what's going on in their neighborhood in the AFC West, there's no room for any blemishes to surface when you look at what the Broncos are doing and, of course, the Chiefs. And they attacked this game with that same mindset, knowing that we have no room for error. We got to stay within the pack of our division, and they took care of their business.
Yeah, this Brian Flores-led defense left Main Street wide open for quarterback to take more than 7 rushes, as Max said, for 60-plus yards here for Justin Herbert as his team gets to 5-3 and a big-time primetime win, now 3-0 in primetime. Let's get to it here on Minnesota because I've got some questions that maybe even stem prior to kick here. It's going to be Carson Wentz as they wanted to give J.J. McCarthy one more week. I won't question that, Mac, but Carson Wentz obviously had an issue with his left arm as well coming into this one. Did he give his football chance the best opportunity to win tonight? With we saw Brosmer late in the game, and we also saw J.J. McCarthy jumping over a ball carrier on the sideline with little issue. Again, I'm not going to question that, but what did you make of Wentz's performance?
Before I talk about Wentz, Joe, I can't overlook Minnesota and how they started the ball game. Isaiah Rodgers that's a gotta have it play. That's the first issue that I saw with Minnesota. And guess what? That was the beginning of a snowball that got bigger and bigger as they rolled down the hill. A missed opportunity to put 7 points on the scoreboard. You missed the interception, and guess what the Chargers did? A double-digit scoring play drive down the length of the football field that jump-started their efforts that made that snowball bigger. Now, to answer your question, honestly, you could have J.J. McCarthy, Tim McCarthy, Luke McCarthy. It didn't matter. With their offensive line playing as bad as they played, it didn't matter. Carson Wentz fought, he battled, but they just didn't have enough. They were already missing the right tackle. And then Christian Darrisaw goes out of this ball game as well. It was slim pickings in terms of what the quarterback could do, better yet, what the running game could do, or the lack thereof. They had no answers to protect Carson Wentz when he was sacked 5 times. And outside of being sacked, he never got an opportunity to get comfortable. They have to get healthy. They have to get healthy because if they do not get healthy, you know who they have next week coming off a bye? The Detroit Lions. And we just saw what Detroit did this past Monday against Baker Mayfield, who was playing at a high level. So offensive line-wise, guys, if they don't get healthy, like I said, Luke, JJ, Tim, It don't matter what McCarthy
Mike?
put in the lineup. It doesn't matter.
You see that as a trip to the Detroit Lions as well in that vaunted pass rush. This is an offensive line that gave up a 41% pressure rate here against the Chargers. Now, Carson Wentz did step up and flush into some of that pressure tonight, but to your point, Mac, could not get comfortable. So maybe we're better suited coming at the conversation this way, Emory. 3-4, the Minnesota Vikings, already more losses than a season ago. And we're watching two quarterbacks that were on the roster last year operating at a very high level elsewhere, between Darnold and later in the season, Daniel Jones. I'm not asking for regret here, but we haven't gotten a chance to figure out what J.J. McCarthy is. How much of a worry is that right now for Minnesota?
It's a big worry because that was the whole plan for this season, to see what you have in your guy. You believe in your guy so much that you gave those other guys their walking papers. And you know, again, we had the conversation whether or not they were going to re-sign with those guys anyway, because they kind of know this was the direction they were going to go with J.J. McCarthy. But even in the games that McCarthy went out there and started this year at full health, it was kind of, okay, we'll wait and see. Let's give him some more starts to see how it goes. Then he has the injury, and now we don't see him for a slew of games. So when he comes back, it's going to be even more pressure on J.J. McCarthy. Now, here's the thing you get with J.J. McCarthy. You get a guy that has been battle-tested, although college, but he now knows the organization believes in him, and there's no threat behind him, so you can go out there and play free, play his best ball. You just hope that he doesn't go out there and press, because at the end of the day, if he goes out there and tries to press with that slate of games that they have coming up, that look like a fight coming up. You have the Bears, you have the Ravens, you have the Packers, you have the Lions. That's going to be a brutal, physical stretch of games. And if he's not 100% healthy and be the athlete that he is, and we saw the sacks tonight for Carson Wentz, who tried his best, and you expect McCarthy to get out there and get out of the way if they can't hold up in protection, then you're going to have more of what we saw tonight moving forward with J.J. McCarthy.
They were outrushed 207 to 34. They were outgained 419 to 164, amongst the worst in their time under KOC. And again, the second largest loss under Kevin O'Connell in his tenure, 27 points, Mac. Maybe we pivot back here to the LA Chargers, who it feels like we learned something about tonight in terms of balance and performance, the importance on the left side. We also saw Mekhi Becton give it a go earlier in this game and then was unable to go, so not yet at full health. You alluded to where they situate right now in their division. It's only to get tougher down the road when you get into those divisional football games. How well equipped is this roster in your eyes to do just that, shake some things up and maybe give the Chiefs a run for their money when it's all said and done?
Well, in terms of the Chiefs, Joe, Emory, they got to get healthy. Now, they were able to weather the storm with some injuries. They lost Derwin James. We don't know his status, but they have to get healthy when you talk about chasing that giant in the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, we saw some positive things. Number one, they have a tight end. Aronde Gasson Jr. is their tight end moving forward. We saw what he did last week. Many felt like, well, that could have been a one-off. No, it looks like he is a guy who could be a playmaker within their offense. So that's a plus. You look at Vidal, it's looking like he's getting comfortable being the featured running back until Omarion Hampton gets back. And then when you get Omarion Hampton back, you have a number two who you can rely on based on what we're seeing from Vidal right now, standing in as RB1. Defensively, you got to get healthy as well. But one thing about this team, regardless who is in uniform, you never can count them out because of their head coach. Who has it better than we do? Nobody. And he displays that with his effort in coaching and the energy. And oh, by the way, we're seeing the best Justin Herbert on display this year with Coach Harbaugh in year two together. So they always, you never can count them out. And don't forget too, guys, they already have a game in hand in place on the Chiefs because of that week one victory that they took care of in Brazil, if I'm not mistaken, it was earlier this year. So they're in a pretty good position, but all of that meant nothing. If they didn't win tonight, they won tonight. So, yes, you got to like their chances regardless of what's going on elsewhere.
You see the Harbaugh effect already. 3-0 in primetime games. The more decisive, empowered Justin Herbert is the best version of himself. And they won this ball game on the ground in the trenches. And on top of that, they had to worry about Justin Herbert's legs, which then opened up more opportunities in the run game. So if you have to worry about all of that now, things are going to be crazy for the Chargers moving forward.
On the topic of worries, and I don't want to nitpick a 27-point victory here, but the early pick six that Mac brought up, It goes their way, but it was a bad look, a miscommunication between he and Ladd McConkey. There's a pick later in the game, throwing across the body, so teach tape there, things to still clean up that they'll be looking at. Do you think that Justin Herbert can play at a level of consistency required to do all the things we're talking about?
Yes, because normally after that bad throw that we saw that got called back, we would have seen Justin Herbert go into a tank. We also would have seen him take these sacks that Carson Wentz took in the pocket, but we saw him just like, hey, no one's open. I'm not going to concede the sack. I'm going to take off and run. And not just take off and run. He was making moves and making guys miss. So you saw him be able to overcome some early mistakes or some inconsistencies. I think this year's Justin Herbert is the one that can do exactly that.
Comfortable with the show on his shoulders, and the show goes on. A big win here on Thursday night for Herbert and the Chargers. A look at your numbers. Yeah, we're fully charged up in prime time. 27-point plus differential, best since 2024. In terms of total yards, they are racking them up, and this one definitely tips those scales. A plus 255. Getting back on the ground here as Week 8 has arrived.